unraveling the mysteries of the body, and the inventor, the spy, and the stuff of legends.
He realized that he had had people's lives in his hands.
These and more stories next on Invention. Welcome to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. I'm Lucky Severson. When we look at the outside of our bodies, we see the obvious things, muscles, limbs, joints, etc. The mystery is what lurks inside. The first X-ray photograph in 1895 unraveled much of that mystery, and of course electromagnetic radiation has come a long way since then, but X-rays still do not clearly reveal soft tissues. That's why the latest invention is so important. It not only enables doctors to watch vital organs at work, it can detect diseases in life-saving time.
I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Dale Myers was a typical happy 20-year-old college student until something happened in 1987 that could have killed him.
In the summer of 1987, I had a seizure. I had actually a series of seizures, and that led my physician to believe that obviously something was wrong.
One of the big questions when someone comes in with bad headaches or numbness or tingling or weakness, it could be migraine, it could be the warning of a stroke, it could be something trivial, or it could be something quite serious, as in this situation.
Dr. Jack Cochran is Dale Myers' neurologist. Thanks to an amazing invention, he and his colleagues discovered that Dale had a brain tumor, and then they were able to pinpoint its location and remove most of the growth. The inventor is Dr. Raymond Damadian, and his invention is called MRI, short for magnetic resonance imaging. Raymond Damadian was a young Albert Einstein College of Medicine graduate when he began working with Dr. Freeman Cope. They used an old technique, nuclear magnetic resonance, to arrive at a very new result, the generation of radio signals from potassium atoms in tissue.
I said, gee, you know, Freeman, if you could ever do on the human body what we're doing on this tiny test tube, making a chemical analysis, we'd be able to go from one tissue to the next in the human body and get direct chemical analysis without ever invading the body, and we'd be in a position to spark an unprecedented revolution in medicine.
He found success a year later. Damadian proved that radio signals from rat cancers were different from signals from normal tissue, making it possible to detect disease. His next challenge was to invent a machine that could scan and make computer images of the entire human body.
This wild idea that I was generating was suggesting giant magnets that the body would go into, and big hoops and antennas that would go around you, and it looked more or less like something from science fiction. And it was hard to get people to take it seriously in those days.
But in 1977, the skeptics suddenly took notice. Damadian's machine, christened the Indomitable, and his colleague, Larry Minkoff, the reluctant human guinea pig, made medical history.
At 4:45 a.m. the morning of July 3rd, Larry climbed out of the scanner, and we'd come full circle and completed the first human scanning machine.
The MRI has come a long way from the Indomitable's magical but murky first picture of a human chest. Today, Dr. Damadian runs his own MRI business, the Fonor Corporation in Long Island, New York.
Just have a seat on the table.
At the MRI suite, patients lie down on a bed.
Lie back right on this belt with your head on the pillow. I'm going to wrap this belt around your waist.
A belt is then wrapped around the part of the body being scanned, and the patient slides inside the magnet.
Turn your head to the side if you want. Okay, just bring your arms out.
40 or so music-filled minutes later, the image is complete. Sounds simple enough, but the chemistry and physics behind magnetic resonance is a complex process. It all starts with a radio signal.
The story of MRI begins with this signal. Now I'm going to turn on the sound from the signal so that you can see that it's very much like a radio signal of the kind that you have everyday familiarity with. Each of these signals is coming from an atom inside your body. So when I put your body into a large magnet, each of the hydrogen atoms will produce one of these signals for us, and when we have billions of them, we can collect them and convert them into a picture.
In other words, an MRI generates a sort of atomic broadcast. A magnetic field causes the hydrogen atoms in your body to line up in high and low energy states. When a radio frequency is applied, it changes more atoms to the high energy state. Then when the radio signals are stopped, the atoms flip back to the original alignment and give off energy in the process. The energy release is detected as tiny radio signals, and the information is sent to a computer, which analyzes the data and produces an image. MRI is expensive at about $1,000 a scan, but in some instances, its advantages over CAT scanning, which is an X-ray technique, are tremendous.
In the MRI, there are no X-rays of any kind. Everything is done with magnetics, which we know to be entirely safe. Secondly, the MRI machine is much more detailed in its ability to see tissue. The X-ray machine has a fundamental disadvantage with the soft tissues of the body because they're so transparent to the X-ray beam.
Now there's new technology that can produce animated MRI images, achieving a diagnosis doctors once only dreamed about. But Raymond Damadian is only just beginning to dream.
I guess I have two desires. One is I want to get the scan fee down so it's $200 a scan so everybody can have it. I mean, it wouldn't make any inventor very happy that 90% of the world's population couldn't afford to use such a wonderful invention because it's too expensive. And the second thing is that I want to get rid of the disease cancer because it harms so many people, and you want to find ways to use the MRI machine to achieve that.
Damadian may have to wait a while to find a cure for cancer, but MRIs are already venturing into other unknown territory. Using souped-up versions, scientists can now peer into the workings of the human brain, making movies of changes that occur as the mind thinks, talks, listens, dreams, and imagines.
What did you think about the program?
Dale Myers and his wife Sunny have imagined what his life would be like without the MRI.
Without the MRI and the grace of God, I don't think I'd be here today. There's no doubt about that. But I'm thankful also to God that we have people who know what they're doing down here on Earth. And I believe the MRI is a result of that.
Thanks to MRI technology, scientists are now venturing into the uncharted territory of the human mind. How long will it be before our innermost thoughts and emotions are deciphered and displayed in binary form, a sequence of ones and zeros? On the other hand, we may finally be able to understand the way an inventor's mind works. Imagine a camera sensitive enough to take color pictures of a person lit only by a single candle placed 100 feet away. It could open up a whole new world, and it has. Polar regions and night skies filled with northern lights. We call it Aurora Cam.
2, 1, 0, and liftoff. Discovery clears the tower.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
Pictures from space. The view from out there has profoundly changed the way we think of ourselves and our humid blue island of life. There have been amazing glimpses of natural phenomena. Thunderstorms over the Pacific, lightning over Africa, and once or twice the rare treat of seeing a beautiful phenomenon, the Aurora Borealis, Northern Lights, and their mirror counterpart, the Aurora Australis, the Southern Lights. These mysterious curtains of light, a common sight for those who live in our polar regions, are seldom seen in more populated areas.
Just behind me through this bulkhead is one of the TV cameras that is standard equipment on the orbiter. And this TV camera is our primary instrument for viewing the aurora. It's a regular camera, except we have left off the normal color wheel because we need to increase the sensitivity, and you have to sacrifice sensitivity to get color.
In the shuttle pictures, the auroras seem to curve aimlessly, but images from a polar satellite reveal that they are actually centered in donut-like bands that circle the north and south geomagnetic poles. That curve of light usually arcs just north of Fairbanks, Alaska. The aurora is very much a part of the environment here. And they study the aurora here at the University of Alaska Geophysical Institute. Dr. Neil Brown is one of the researchers.
The University of Alaska Fairbanks has a long history in taking pictures of the aurora. In fact, the very first work done here was using two simple film cameras about 12 miles apart to do stereo imaging to get the height of the aurora off the Earth. This was back in the 1930s.
But still shots, impressive as they are, require long exposure times and they freeze the movement. Stills can't do justice to the northern lights. They miss that movement, the quick liquid sway and dance of the beautiful rays and bands. What was needed was a camera that could record that movement in color in real time. Researchers at the University of Alaska were approached by a Japanese TV network, also interested in obtaining color pictures of the northern lights. They collaborated, and the result was this camera. The first time it was pointed at the aurora, the tapes were stunning. The aurora has been described by scientists as much like a huge television set or neon sign. The light is created by atomic particles, protons and electrons streaming outward from the sun. The Earth's magnetic field causes this particle stream, which is called the solar wind, to arc inward and strike gases in our upper atmosphere. As the particles collide with atoms, mostly oxygen and nitrogen, they cause these atoms to emit tiny flashes of light. It takes millions of such impacts per second occurring in each cubic centimeter of the upper atmosphere before the light becomes visible to the eye. And it is still too dim to be photographed or videotaped by most equipment without time exposure. To demonstrate the amazing sensitivity required for this aurora camera to work, we lit Dr. Brown with a single candle 10 feet away, with another one added for backlight. But this only begins to use the camera's sensitivity.
In order to duplicate the light level in the aurora, that candle would have to be almost 100 feet away from me, almost 10 times further away than it is at this moment.
One very high-speed color film on the market has a sensitivity rating of 1600 ASA. The Aurora Video Cam has an equivalent rating of 2 million ASA. Dan Osborne, who helped shoot the Aurora tapes, says the secret to the camera is in these tubes.
This is called a silicon intensified target tube, or an SIT, and it works because of a different nature than your normal camera tubes. The photons come on in, strike the photocathode, and become electrons. There's a very high voltage behind it on the target, so the electrons get accelerated towards the target very fast, and they're coming in very energetically. They strike the target and change the target. Then the electron beam comes in and scans and reads those changes off the target. And this is the way NASA still gets color off the space shuttle today, is one of these tubes and a sequential color wheel. And this is kind of an improvement of it.
NASA and the National Science Foundation paid for the camera. The Geophysical Institute used these tapes as a final report on recording auroral phenomenon. The museum on campus sells the tapes, and as a result, people in warmer latitudes now have the good fortune to witness the Northern Lights, one of the great displays in nature. There are people who think they can hear the cracklings or whistlings of the auroras. Scientists don't think that's possible because such sounds don't travel through the thin upper atmosphere. But they are willing to listen to any recordings that might explain where the sounds are coming from. The spy's name was Bond, James Bond, and who can forget the work of Agent Q? He was the man responsible for inventing those wonderful gadgets that got Bond out of all those sticky situations. Agent Q's character was actually based on a real-life gadget maker who saved countless lives during World War II. His name was Smith, Charles Fraser Smith. When he was alive, he was hailed as a war hero. When the Germans marched across Europe in the Second World War, Charles Fraser Smith wasn't flying dangerous missions or operating undercover behind enemy lines. He wasn't even serving in the Allied armed forces, but his ingenuity and dedication saved countless lives. His is an incredible story. In a rare interview long before his death in 1992, he admitted that even he sometimes couldn't believe it.
I just blink and I think of the whole blooming job. And I don't believe it all happened. And if I didn't have that book and these various objects, I think I had a dream.
Now those objects and many more are part of an exhibition recognizing his remarkable contribution to the war effort. The little book is also part of the show. Among the meticulous handwritten records are the clues to the wartime life of Charles Fraser Smith, an existence so secret that he never revealed it, even to his family, for more than 30 years. Clues like fountain pens, brushes, hairbrushes, toothbrushes, and shaving brushes, even golf balls. The little book belonged to the Ministry of Supply. Officially, Fraser Smith worked as an office clerk for the ministry in London. Unofficially and unknown to his immediate superiors, he was involved in what was indeed a supply operation. The recipients were spies, resistance workers, prisoners of war, and underground agents. The goods supplied were highly specialized, the product of a mind that never rested.
I think he probably thought the old cliché, necessity is the mother of invention, was absolutely true, because it was necessity that was at the back of most of them, of all of these inventions.
It was so necessary, it was a matter of life and death. Every pilot flying up to Europe took along a Fraser Smith invention. It was the first thing Alan Bryant reached for behind enemy lines.
We were shot down over Berlin, and I landed 4 or 5 miles outside Berlin. One of the escape aids, which we all had a number of, were buttons. And these were buttons which had been issued to us and which were on our blouses or on our shirts or on our trousers or on our fly buttons. And the buttons were magnetized.
The compass was an ongoing challenge for Fraser Smith. He hid them in rulers. He modified fountain pens so they could be made to function as a compass. He came up with more than 50 different disguises for this vital piece of equipment. The agents flew off to war with a life expectation of 3 weeks. Fraser Smith did all he could to bring them back alive.
And there's a little compass. And then I thought, well, hang on, let's shorten the rubber and have something in the bottom. And here again, that unscrews with your map inside.
Maps were also very important. He made them from the finest tissue paper and hid them inside brushes. He rolled them so thinly they could fit inside fountain pens. He concealed them wherever he could. As the Germans gradually uncovered his hiding spots, he stepped up his war of wits. Fraser Smith made invisible maps on handkerchiefs, which could be developed using a fluid which an airman or prisoner always carried, their own urine.
Handkerchiefs were very important because all people who went on operations had handkerchiefs with maps on, and the maps varied and covered the various countries they were flying over.
When the Allies could not determine the effectiveness of their bombing campaigns, Fraser Smith concealed a camera in a cigarette lighter. Within days, rolls of film, each containing 50 photographs, were on their way back to London. Emergency food rations were miniaturized and disguised. One order in his little book was for cycling shoes to be used to scale the wall of a faraway concentration camp. But despite this array of extraordinary gadgets, no one realized the magnitude of his contribution, not even Charles Fraser Smith himself.
At the time, it was just an interesting job, and he thought he was very lucky to have got it. He realized after that he had had people's lives in his hands. He was too busy during the war, I think, for that to dawn on him. But afterwards, as the stories began to unfold, he realized how much they had been dependent on the quality of the gadgets.
Today, Charles' wife, Lynn Fraser Smith, carries on his work at Dover Castle with its views across the English Channel to where more than 80 of her husband's gadgets help save lives. It's a fitting home for the exhibition commemorating his work, which modern-day authors and movie makers have immortalized. The Agent Q, for example, of James Bond fame, is modeled after an agent the world knew little about, Charles Fraser Smith.
I think he thinks Q is the best part of the films. Perhaps he's biased.
There are thousands of Allied servicemen who are quite grateful that there really was an agent named Charles Fraser Smith. Wouldn't it be fun, or maybe even a little scary, to find out what Agent Q's contemporaries are up to today? We'll try to find out. Some ideas are designed to make our lives a little easier, especially at home, especially if you have a roommate. And now with a selection of these wild and crazy, wacky, ingenious, space-saving ideas from the old days, here's Popular Science.
After a hard day at the office, a bachelor girl relaxes. Two bachelor girls relax in a one-room home that has everything, or nearly everything. Oh, yes, she says, I'd forgotten. It is my turn tonight, for it's always the maid's night out in this Adamless Eden. And now we're in the kitchen. Funny place to keep the piano, or is it the radio? It's neither. It's a complete undercover kitchen. The oven large enough for a turkey. Storage space for pans and pots. Hot and cold water. If you forget to turn off the electric burners, they turn off automatically with the closing of the cover. Everything accessible at the lightest touch, while the refrigerator's ample spaces provide a dinner for two and protect food enough for a week. Watch and you'll see the wall break down and yield a nifty dresser, for we're in the dressing room now. Besides other damage done by the betraying lipstick, it ruins $30 million worth of gowns annually in stores and homes. There'll be no stains on this cute frock. You'll be surprised to know the lip cover was invented by a university professor. And here's a mirror that's really devoted to beauty. Two mirrors, actually. One, adjusted to the chair back, moves with every turn of the reflected lady, who thus can see herself from any angle desired, leaving both hands free to further the business of making beauty even more so. And now, discreetly, let us invade the bedroom. It's all right. Presto! From drawing room cabinets appear as by magic twin beds fit for slumbering queens. While overhead radio lamps with dial letters upside down for the convenience of recumbent eyes are right next to reading matter. Say, modern girls and popular science together sure make it tough for the boys these days.
When was the last time you saw an electric stove masquerading as a piano in your living room? And the stowaway beds are now sofa beds, and you can find Murphy beds if you look around. And if you look around, you'll find us next time around. Hope you'll join us. This is Invention. I'm Lucky Severson.